This isn't an advice post, I'm just struggling with a lot of emotions and need to vent. Last year, my daughter ran away from her dad's house. She was found and taken back before I could see her. Suddenly, her phone didn't work, and all calls had to go through her dad. Her Instagram and Snapchat were deactivated, and she started saying she didn't want to visit. Our weekend visits dwindled to monthly, and sometimes every 6 to 8 weeks. I even tried to send letters via snail mail, but she never confirmed receiving anything. A month ago, I went to see her after she'd had an argument with her dad. She had a bruise around her eye but said it was from playing with her brother. She mentioned the arguing was getting out of hand, and she wanted to come live with me. I filed for custody, so the state assigned her a lawyer. I wasn't allowed to sit in on the meeting, so nobody could say I was influencing her, but afterwards, my daughter said the lawyer had defined abuse, and that's definitely what had been happening. My ex had convinced our daughter that hitting was normal, choking was something all parents do, kicking wasn't a big deal, and yanking her by the hair was her own fault. So she never spoke up, until her lawyer assured her that it was, in the eyes of the law, abuse, and that she never has to see him again if she doesn't want to. I'm devastated. I lived with him for 6 years but didn't see the signs. His wife allowed it to happen in front of her. My poor daughter suffered in silence out of fear for herself and her little brother, all because this person convinced her that nobody would care that he hurt her. Child Protective Services were contacted, and the investigation is open on my ex and his wife. I'm hoping their son is removed from their custody. As shaken as she is, my daughter is determined to do what she can to protect her brother. I can't hug my daughter enough. Update 1. It has been a wild ride. My post history has more details, but I'll try to summarize. My ex, who I'll call Jay, had primary residence of our daughter, Kiddo, 14F, for 8 years. In June 2019, Kiddo contacted me and said she couldn't live there anymore. She was slow to open up, but over the following weeks, she told me Jay had been physically abusive. I filed for full custody and opened an investigation through CPS. Jay had always been bailed out by his parents, so he asked his dad to pay for a lawyer. His dad refused, so Jay assaulted him, breaking 3 of his ribs and fracturing his skull in 5 places around his eye socket. 4 days after the assault, Kiddo had a dance recital. Jay hadn't been arrested for the assault because it was in a different county, and I hadn't heard anything about it, otherwise I might have been more vigilant about keeping an eye out for him. Jay snuck backstage and abducted Kiddo. The police said the wording in our agreement was too vague to charge him with kidnapping, but after driving to every spot I could think they'd go, I found her 14 hours later and brought her home. In November, Kiddo told me her dad had been molesting her. He told her that because he was not inserting himself in her, and because she was allowed to say no, that it wasn't rape and this was legal. She believed him for 6 years, until she got away from his brainwashing and realized how truly messed up that situation had been. Another CPS investigation was opened, but they said without physical evidence it was unlikely he'd be convicted. I've been making the 2-hour drive to Jay's County for family court every month since June. He was arrested for the assault in September but got bailed out within 24 hours. His assault case caused some delays in our custody case, but it's finally over. He didn't bother showing up to our last 2 court appearances, so he gets nothing, no weekends, no holidays, not even Father's Day, and no phone calls. Kiddo is in therapy and CPS is still investigating. Yesterday, Jay's parents informed me that he won't serve any jail time for the assault. The police mistakenly charged him with a felony, but due to a small loophole in the phrasing, this was an error. If it were to go to trial, it would be thrown out. Instead, the judge gave him the option of 1 year in jail or 1 year of mandatory counseling, including anger management. So he's still walking free, barely paying for what he did. I'm hoping the CPS investigation gets better results, but it's hard to stay optimistic. In the meantime, I'm enjoying winter break with Kiddo, whom I'm incredibly proud of for standing up to her father. I'm making sure the remainder of her childhood is awesome. Happy holidays, everyone. Edit. Thank you to everyone for your suggestions. We have a restraining order, so Jay is not allowed to contact me in any way, nor is he allowed on our property, at my job, or at Kiddo's school. Also, I'm being asked why Jay had primary custody. When Kiddo was about to start kindergarten, Jay filed for custody again, but I didn't want a custody battle to interfere with her first year of school. I agreed to let her stay with him during the week, and I would have her on weekends and all school vacations. That was as evenly as I could think to split the time. However, because that ultimately gave him more time with her, he was considered her primary guardian. Update 2. Court was held up for 2 long years because of COVID. When I got full custody, it was just the tip of the iceberg. CPS was still investigating child abuse allegations. We were interviewed by numerous specialists, investigators, doctors, and lawyers. We drove all over the state and submitted countless forms and photos. It truly felt hopeless at times, and I once yelled at a cop for missing a deadline. It was like treading water. This system is designed to wear people down. This week, my child took the stand. They testified for a total of 10 hours, in front of their abusive father. I wasn't allowed to be in the room because the defense's argument was that I was orchestrating a massive lie against my ex. They had their therapist and an advocate by their side. I'm incredibly proud of my child for the bravery they showed in the face of the man who tortured them during their most formative years. The jury found my ex guilty on all 5 charges. He will be sentenced in May, but the minimum sentence for these charges is life in prison. It almost doesn't feel real. It's like there's one less shadow in the world. Relevant info from up. No charges against the stepmom, unfortunately, but she was never actively abusive. She just didn't stop it, which may have been because she was also being abused. Not that it excuses it, but I think the little brother will be okay now. He's still living with his mom, but we're hoping for more visitation now that his dad is out of the picture. Kiddo is gender fluid, so they use all pronouns, but I've gotten in the habit of using they/them. Update 3. To summarize, my child's father is an abusive, narcissistic monster who was rescued from consequences his entire life by his parents. Well, in 2019, he messed up badly, and his parents refused to help him, so he assaulted his dad. A restraining order was put in place, so he no longer had contact with his parents. Without them lying to cover for him and paying for lawyers, I was finally able to get full custody and get him arrested for child abuse and child intimate abuse. I never had a great relationship with his parents in the 20 years prior to this, but since the assault, they finally accepted that I wasn't the bad person he'd always made me out to be. It took a long time of supervised visits to feel comfortable letting them see my child. Eventually, I could trust that they genuinely felt remorse for siding with my ex and making my efforts to protect my child so much harder. I had many talks with Jay's mom about the lies we'd both been told about each other, and we realized our relationship had been so difficult because he was manipulating both of us. Kiddo now does regular visits for days at a time, and they text every day. We've gone camping with them, and I would go so far as to say we're friends. Which brings me to this morning, literally 3 hours ago. My ex is in jail awaiting sentencing. I got a call from the investigator to let me know my ex has been making a lot of calls to get family to pressure my kiddo to recant their testimony. When I asked who exactly he's talked to, they said he has talked to his mother every week since his arrest over a month ago, sometimes multiple times a week. They don't use our actual names, but my code name is the boss of the company because, according to their conversations, I'm in charge of orchestrating this lie against him. The last call was last night, while kiddo was at her house visiting for spring break. She accepted a call from my child's abuser while my child was in the next room. I feel so betrayed. I feel like an idiot for believing his mother was on our side. I don't think she has talked to my kiddo about it because my child would not only shut that down but would tell me about it. But I feel like all the trust we've been building over the last couple of years has been shattered. This family just can't stop manipulating, lying. Update 4. Yesterday, kiddo's father was sentenced to 23 years to life in prison. His side of the courtroom was packed with about 10 people, including family, friends, and neighbors. They all wrote letters to the judge, asking for the minimum sentence because they had all been tricked or terrorized into defending him. Kiddo read a victim impact statement, but abandoned their notes and spoke from the heart about how sad it is that he'll miss the rest of his children's lives because of his terrible choices. They spoke about their mental health struggles, but also how they're succeeding in school and are finding who they really are. It was emotional, with a lot of anger and sadness. Kiddo and Dad both cried, and then Kiddo simply ended with, "Goodbye." I had a less kind victim impact statement. His lawyer objected to me speaking at all, but the judge overruled it. I spoke about how awesome Kiddo is, how they deserve to live the rest of their life without giving him another thought, and how they're better off without him. I spoke of the years of abuse, harassment, threats, and crimes that my ex has gotten away with, and how we're finally getting justice. I said the most impressive thing about him is his breathtaking stupidity, and how this is the most memorable thing he's ever done with his life. Finally, my ex got to make a statement. He talked about the jobs he's had recently, how he helps neighbors, and how he's really understanding how to handle conflict better. Literally, that was it. The judge's reaction to that was, "Your child just bared their soul to the whole court, and you didn't mention them once." He didn't talk about his children, his wife, or anyone, just himself. He was trying to make it sound like he was reformed without actually admitting guilt. The judge was not impressed. She said she is haunted by the testimony Kiddo gave during the trial, and in case his supporters weren't present for the trial, she highlighted some of the worst things from Kiddo's testimony. It was horrifying. Nobody there yesterday had been at the trial and looked legitimately uncomfortable to be sitting behind him. After the sentence was handed down, my ex's mother tried to speak to me. She'd maintained contact with my ex and had lashed out when I told her we were going no contact until after the sentencing. She had attacked my character, my ability as a parent, and questioned my family's love for Kiddo. She burned that bridge hard, but as soon as her son was sentenced to 23 years in prison, she thought she could be friendly again. I said, "Nope," and kept walking. Kiddo and I went on a shopping spree. We spent way too much money, but it was worth it. After all, we have to look good for this next chapter of our lives.